This is a thought session. I have things I need to get done, but in order to do them, I need to be selfless. And in order to be selfless, I need something to give. I need to surrender to my work, that is. And to have something to give, I need to be selfish. It's like a necessary evil. There's only one way to do this. Under the assumption, under the belief that the self is not true. The self is not true in that it is just a delusion. And if you believe that, all values from life to death are inverted. And so, the only way out to be anything, to do anything, is complete surrender. All things great come out of selflessness. Under the assumption, under the belief that the self is not true. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that the self is just a delusion, that reality is not the truth. And I'm sure you're thinking, absurd. But through reason alone, we can know this to be fact. All because of the saying, a void remains a void because it is void. Nothing else is more true. Nothing else is more absolute. In the beginning, there could never be a thing, because there was no thing to start with. A void remains a void because it is a void. And from here, all life is completely fucked. At least from a sentient perspective. All value is shifted. All self becomes evil. And I stress that word. Evil, in this case, in this context, is delusion. In all things of that delusion, behind everything lies not a thing. There is no thing or nothing to be at all, ever. And it's painful. Only years ago, about 2 years ago, did I finally consolidate this in my head, and I wrote it down. Not even the truth is real. There is nothing, no thing to make it real. Thus, everything, you, me, your work, your friends, your life, and everything in and around it is only nothing, just apparent, ostensible, abstract nothingness. That's all. And how does this affect an individual who understands it? What does it mean? As I said before, or at least implied, nothing. Doesn't mean anything. Shit fucked. I can only hope that I get over myself soon enough to complete everything I ever wanted to touch the top of Zenith Hill. Everything I ever wanted will have been for nothing if I don't get over myself now. Of course, in order to do that, you have to embellish yourself. Become an egotistical fuck. An asshole. A douchebag. So self-absorbed that not even a fucking thought can slip through your mind for more than what is ephemeral. And I find it sickening every time I go. I don't want to go. If I had the choice, if there wasn't a duality, if there wasn't this split between mind and truth and heart, there would be no problem. But there is the truth. And whether we accept it or realize it or go to it with the end, to the end, until that fucking dark day you die, that there's nothing ever to fucking make it better, only your fucking hopeless demise. You will remember no thing, not at all. It's holes and dust. From here, there is only a funeral. And selfless, painful. To sum it up, it's meaningless. Pray to God you don't end up quite where I am. Because the only way to fix it The only way to fix it it is here, in this world, where there's only agony and torment for the intellectual, or the seeker of truth, and that we always must return to our convictions in the form of substance. What I mean? Anything that is a characteristic or is an opiate dulls the mind, numbs the senses, and kills all creativity, all love. The self is an apathetic, Down syndrome piece of shit. If there is another way out of hell, you let me know. I'd be glad to show you what I know. I've never made a video before. I've never cared. Only recently have I started to think about it. Now it's only like a dream. I'm not even real. Everything I do in the self is fucking infinitesimal. And transitory. That's all. Signing out. Hope is for the diseased. Hope is for the broken. Those who know the truth of their reality of themselves. Life is like a... It's like everything you've ever wanted, drowned in a fucking pool of filth, all that's pure, all that's true is forever. And if you look around you, can you tell me what lasts forever? In your environment, in this world, in this universe, everything else, tell me what lasts forever. And if you somehow think you know something that does, tell me what makes it real. Tell me that anything else could exist to make it real. There's just so much shit out there. I try to keep it clean. But there's only so much energy. And then you have to go back to the fucking dirt. It's the eternal return. Life is the eternal recurrence. It's a never-ending, self-propelling mechanism of remembering and forgetting, and trauma and pain. All for the intellectual, of course. The intellectual who believes that the self is not evident, who has doubts about his own fucking existence, or does away with entirely. That's the way life is. And if I wasn't stuck in this if I wasn't in this condition, with this mind capable of understanding more than any extrovert ever could. If I'm capable, I think you are too. But for the individual whose whole life is based around the assumption that the self is true or existent, doesn't understand at all, and probably shouldn't. It's as horrible as it gets, really. Knowing the truth is like truncating a limb. It's like reading a book that has no end. It's just a bunch of convoluted sentences leading to nowhere from every part of the mind. Memories, contingencies, projections, and fantasies. There's no consistency. There's no control. Not real control. Well, not a diluted control. There's only helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, and guilt. Try reading a book that has no end. That goes to assume that if a book doesn't have an end, it just doesn't really have a beginning either. There's just fucking words. Indecipherable. It's obfuscated. That's kind of what it's like in Oblivion. When you're up high. There is no feeling, there is no sky. There's only a question of why. Why did you? Why do you? How is this possible? It's not. That's the hope. That's the only hope you have. Just to realize that it's not possible. Therein, reality becomes like a toy. Everything you ever wanted. Completely unfettered. It becomes at the palms of your hands, at the grasp, touch of your fingertips. If only you have something to give, and I know you do. Unless, of course, you're in a situation that demands everything out of you. In that case, what can you do? And even then it just feels conflicting with what you want. It makes it almost impossible to communicate with other human beings on a day-to-day basis. Like routinely. And thus you become anomic. You become estranged. You become fucking inoculated from social situations that make any fucking sense. And it's painful. That's kind of where trauma comes from. And exhaustion. But damage through the self. No real defense mechanism. And so you become avoidant. You start shutting all doors. You lose humanity. And everyone will ask you, translated, implied, transliterated, have some humanity. Why don't you? Fuck you, I know the truth, is what you should say. I don't owe you fuck shit. But it's never enough. After all, you can't live off of nothing. Not in the context of this bullshit reality. Because in it, everything has a cause, everything has a reason. So it seems. Chaos is just Chaos is just an anomaly, a perspective, or a complete understanding of how to deal with being so immersed that the membrane is evaporated. It's quite a thing. But if you have just one thing to rest on, and you exploit it to the most it can be, the most it is, you might just be able to survive. You might just be able to survive as someone you want to be, someone who does things you want to do, who makes great pieces of art, who writes books of literature, who sings, dances, plays music, composes. All art, you will be free, and death might seem more bearable. That is my name, after all. If you like what you're seeing, I recommend you stay tuned for more. It should be coming. I see an open future. I see this as a catalyst for great things. Something I've been needing. Because my life is... I don't care. It's great. And I am completely thankful that I have this camera, place to live, things to do. Apparently not something to wear. And, I mean, not naked, but, yeah. There you go. There's this book, it's Lord of the Rings. I want you to read it. It's full of details. It's not one of my top priorities. And then there's fucking Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, I think. Beyond Good and Evil. Something it's more important than that other thing. I mean, it takes a mind to appreciate this. One that's not fully dissolved yet. And, I think that's it.